Hello, everyone. I think I've at least spoken with most of you in the discussions at some point within this program, but for those of you who don't know me, I'm Connor Zipfel. Rather than explicitly outline the contents of my presentation here, I think you'll feel a greater impact if we begin with two thoughts. First is that I want to congratulate our cohort for our accomplishment in completing such a rigorous MBA program. Second, and more importantly, I'd like to invite each of you to take a moment and think back to why, in any of your right minds, did you choose this specific MBA program, especially considering this one entails solving wicked problems wrought with unparalleled ambiguity, complexity, and uncertainty? Now, I'm sure there's a myriad of reasons as to why exactly each of us are here together, but I think it's quite likely they can all be boiled down to one motive, which is that we're all striving to exhibit revolutionary leadership so we can make a positive impact in our respective industries. As I've embarked on this journey with each of you over the past 2 years, I've learned of the incredible diversity that our cohort exhibits, not only in demographics, but also in profession and career aspirations. Some of you work in finance, and some in sales. Some of you work in consulting, while others are in the military. And to the latter, thank you for your service, which helped galvanize this talk. My grandfather was a major influence on me, but especially with his stories from his time in the Navy, for which he actually received this token of recognition and thanks from Barack Obama. So anyway, I happen to be in engineering, which means our fields are long-ranging, as some of you deal with retirement accounts and help others achieve their financial dreams. Some of you supply hospitals with the equipment they need to save lives, especially in these unprecedented times. Regardless, Steve Jobs and his quote come to mind when I think of all the crazy levels of persistence and leadership potential I've seen from this cohort. As Jobs said, the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do. And as for me, I work in the defense industry, which means I'm tasked with helping to ensure our livelihoods are protected. Now, I know that not everyone viewing this talk will be familiar with the tools that are required for us to be able to sleep soundly at night, although I hope to shed some light on that in a bit. But I can assure you that the field of national defense is one in which revolutionary leadership is absolutely required. Let me put it this way. Not only is maintaining the defense capabilities of our country critical to us being able to enjoy the securities of having jobs, owning houses, and raising families, this problem is especially wicked for the United States, a country which offers freedoms and liberties to its citizens that are unique to any other country in world history, because it demands defense solutions that are both quality rendering and cost effective, so they can exhibit unparalleled technology without constraining the economic freedom of those funding them, which are the taxpayers. They're you and me. So, like it or not, our national defense is something that affects both the security and the freedoms we enjoy as residents of this country. And although there are many aspects to the problem surrounding the maintenance of our nation's defense, I'd like to use the next several minutes to demonstrate how I intend to use the revolutionary leadership characteristics I've garnered with you in this program to solve a salient defense problem facing the United States Navy. Before I get into the specifics of my wicked problem, I'd like you to spend a moment considering the luxuries that we far too often take for granted in our lives. Excluding the military members of our cohort, I conjecture that most of you have never physically witnessed anything like what's shown in this picture. I wish I could say it represents an old, barbaric time. However, it was just taken recently and shows the pain of hunger and homelessness, which often ravages war-torn areas. I do hope these kids are okay, but I want to point out that it's not only a testament of our historic security that many of you cannot personally relate to this image, it's also proof of the need to maintain this security if we are to continue enjoying our freedom and if we hope to help war-torn areas such as these. You see, in the past, we've been fortunate. Following World War II, the United States Navy had been regarded as the most powerful oceanic force in the world, meaning our livelihoods were well protected despite frequent security threats from foreign nations and despite roughly half of all import and export operations occurring by sea. Today, this protection is more important than ever, as many of the products used daily by American consumers, such as computers, smartphones, electric cars, and even pharmaceuticals, are imported from countries like South Korea, Japan, and Germany. Moreover, the U.S. relies on its extensive exports of products such as food, fuel, and aircraft to bolster its economy. So if foreign nations were to block trade routes, as Iran has threatened, it would have severe economic consequences for consumers, or for you and me, and for our security. Unfortunately, this is where I have to deliver some bad news. The Navy's global authority is waning. And it's not a problem for the next generation. In fact, this is already a major problem because the Navy's fleet has already begun to erode as of this past year, as its cruisers begin to reach the end of their service lives. And it gets worse. Reports of aggression from China, Russia, and North Korea have been on the rise as these countries bully others over territorial disputes, invade private waters, and seek to intimidate with threats of missile testing, all of which are actions that can be linked to a globally diminishing U.S. maritime presence. So to add some clarity to the scope of this problem, the Navy is one of the main divisions within the Department of Defense, and thus is a key contributor to national and global security, which means that allies of the United States are just as threatened by this problem as we are. Furthermore, the pace at which this problem is threatening us is accelerating the longer it remains unsolved. By 2026, 11 U.S. Navy cruisers will be decommissioned, and 11 more will be temporarily out of commission for service life extension. With a current fleet of only 275 ships, the Navy is operating with far less resources than the 355 ships it needs to maintain its historic reach and capability. To put this in perspective, I want each of you to think of your retirement accounts. Say you're fairly diversified and hold investments in 40 different stocks. As we learned in the finance class, it's in your best interest to diversify even further by obtaining holdings in, say, 50 stocks to reduce your risk of loss. But now also consider that some of the 40 companies in which you already hold stock appear to be undervalued. However, others are reporting losses, and worse yet, some of the companies are exhibiting signs of bankruptcy. As the shareholder, how do you fortify your portfolio such that it achieves your goals and reduces risk? Do you sell the underperforming stocks at a loss and reinvest in new ones? Do you double down on underperforming investments in anticipation of increased value down the road? Or is it some combination of both? In a way, this is the same situation facing the U.S. Navy, as the two options for maintaining its authority are to either invest in its potentially undervalued existing ships with refurbishment programs, or scrap them and build new ones. However, neither of these options are viable when pursued alone. Service life extension or refurbishment programs are affordable, but can put ships out of commission for years and provide less value to the fleet than new ships, as old, outdated technology is used longer than initially intended. Conversely, the cost of reaching the Navy's 355 ship goal with new vessels alone would be $26.6 billion annually for the next 30 years. And to put that in perspective, the Navy's new vessel construction budget is only $19.9 billion for 2021. As I've hinted, the two main forces that drive this problem are that it's too economically cumbersome to allocate the multi-billion-dollar budget to the Navy for the construction of all the new vessels it would need to reach its 355 ship goal. So you can see in the Peterson Foundation pie chart that defense spending is already controversially accounting for over half of all the discretionary governmental spending. Conversely, it's also unclear what the Navy's defense abilities would be with a potentially outdated fleet caused by vessel remediation programs, as each ship in the fleet offers a unique warfare asset. Because of this, the Navy experiences different types of limitations with each decommissioned vessel. So let's think back to our retirement account example. If the US government were to fund the Navy to build from scratch all the ships to reach its goal, it would be akin to you taking out a loan with which to buy stocks for your retirement account. If used wisely, the borrowed money could help you reach your goal. However, the debt and interest burden would likely continue to haunt you well into retirement. Conversely, if the Navy were to refurbish all its existing ships, it would be like doubling down on the stock of potentially struggling companies and actually increase your risk due to lack of diversification. So in other words, the root cause behind this problem is the uncertainty surrounding whether or not to utilize the Navy's finite budget to fund expensive new build ships or put the existing ships into structural remediation programs to extend their service life. Fortunately, my engineering background, in tandem with my newfound business acumen, put me in a position to shine a ray of hope onto this situation by conducting a side-by-side comparison of value and cost between the service life extension and new construction options, as these insights can then be used at the discretion of the Navy to determine the most value-adding and cost-effective proportion of the two programs to employ in maintaining oceanic authority. So again, going back to our investment account example, if the Navy was seeking to build assets to reach a retirement goal, I would contribute by playing the role of financial advisor. It won't be easy, but I intend to look at each of the Navy's holdings within its account, if you will, of ships, and assess whether to replace each asset with a new build or refurbishment program. Specifically, I'll do this by using the concepts of project management and value stream maps from operations and supply chain management to outline primary labor, capital, and time resource requirements needed to meet the production objectives of both the fleet fortification options, to indicate how long each would take and assess value-adding and non-value-adding activities required to complete them, just as your financial advisor would find and then recommend specific stocks or bonds in which to invest depending on your unique situation. And I want to note that for the cases in which the Navy uses the insights from my solution to justify the use of structural remediation programs instead of building new vessels, the solution is also increasing the sustainability aspect of fleet fortification. And that's because decommissioning and deconstruction of old ships can result in environmental degradation, whereas structural remediation is a much greener approach to fleet fortification because it allows for the reuse of existing ship structures. Given the extensive research needed to execute my wicked problem solution, the most salient resources and activities required to solve this problem are funding and digital communication mediums, as well as collaboration with key partners and suppliers. In other words, the solution first necessitates winning a contract with the Navy to garner funding with which to perform key activities. Then, it requires gathering of intellectual resources to better understand the costs and value of the vessel new build and refurbishment options, so they can be weighed against one another. Regarding key activities, communication must be established with the Navy to understand its shortcomings, and then collaboration with maritime engineering firms and shipbuilders is needed to understand the extent of engineering work required to pursue new build ships versus refurbishing old ones. Finally, conferral with suppliers of aluminum and steel resources, such as Alcoa and Sabre, is needed, as these are the two most notable metals utilized within ship fabrication. Information from the key partners will be digitally processed in tandem with materials prices from suppliers to discern the value-added and cost-incurring nature of the refurbishment and new build options, with which to provide consulting services to the Navy and solve their wicked problem of maintaining oceanic authority in an economically viable manner. And in conclusion, our livelihoods are at risk. At this very moment, the U.S. Navy is wasting away, the effects of which are already being felt as more of its vessels are decommissioned with each passing year. With constraints on its budget and vessel performance needs, this quote from Admiral Grace Hopper could not be truer. The most damaging phrase in the language is, "It's always been done that way." Thankfully, there's a beacon of hope for the Navy and for our livelihoods. Through collaboration with key partners and suppliers, I can perform key activities such as research on operational value streams and project crashing, and be in the position to advise the Navy to assist it in achieving its goal of maintaining its authority over the world's oceans and in a manner that preserves both our security and our freedom. Much like how I hope each of you have invested in portfolios that are equipped for anything, even this COVID pandemic, I hope to use the solution I've outlined in this presentation to help equip the Navy to handle even the most unthinkable scenarios. My colleagues and friends, thank you again for the revolutionary leadership characteristics we have worked to instill within one another over this 2-year journey. I hope you're happy seeing the fruits of that labor make a positive impact on the defense industry and on our many freedoms, and I hope we can keep in touch. Thanks for watching.